What's up? What's up, everybody? We're
Hey.
here with Mason, aka Vino Malo. Did I say it right?
That's it, Vino Malo.
Okay, so we're gonna get to the origins of that here in a second. Let me drop this. I'm gonna drop this link in the Discord real quick. Make sure everybody knows we're live. So cool, man. How's it going?
It's going good.
Nice.
It's getting cold out here in Denver.
Yeah. It's not always cold. I imagine it's always cold out there.
We have like 40-degree swings over a day, so like it'll probably be back to 70 next week, but it's like 40 right now.
Uh-oh. So what is the snow weather? When do you get to that?
Last year we were super lucky and it wasn't until like January, but it might snow tonight.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So down here in Alabama, there's not really, it's just kind of like nice now. And we went from like being blistering hot every day to now it's just kind of cooling off. This is my favorite time of year though. Like the transition to fall is always just like, the sky's nice and the weather's not too bad. So
I'm originally from Florida, so I've lived in Denver for about 6 years now, and it's been a learning experience from having no seasons whatsoever.
What part of Florida were you in?
South Florida, like West Palm Beach.
Okay, sick. So you get like the every day there's like this tiny drizzle.
Yeah, cloudy skies, little like maybe sun shower or something.
Yeah. It was kind of like that in Hawaii every now and then. There wouldn't be any clouds in the sky, but you would get like just this misty rain that just like blows in from really far away.
Sometimes it's hot. The rain's hot.
Yeah, hot rain. Sick. Let's see. Okay. So cool, man. So you're at WMD right now, and your title is software developer. Is it just you, or are there other guys that are also developing?
I'm the only software guy, but the design team is about like 4 or 5 people, where we just meet 2 times a week and discuss ideas, and like all the engineers are on the team, so we can like work through how things are going to come together. So it's less like one person doing a job and throwing it to someone else. We all kind of like try to stay on the same page.
Okay, cool. And so I guess we'll get more into that experience. What's it like to develop modules?
It's like my dream, basically. It's the reason I moved out here from Florida, was to try and get this going, and it all happened to work out in really, really awesome way. So it's pretty awesome, and I feel like the parts that I get to do are all the parts that I want to do, and I feel like I take pressure off parts that other people wouldn't want to do. So we have just a really, really good team thing going on.
And what are some of the modules that you've worked on? I guess all of them. If you're the only software guy,
yeah, anything that has a microcontroller, and some things that you might not think do like Carbon, because the whole interface, all the switching, and like the tap to release, like those kind of features they're much easier done on a microcontroller than with anything else. So my very first project, the project that actually like kind of got me the job, was literally Metron. So that one I was actually doing before I was the full-time software developer for WMD. I was doing it on my own time, and that's where I kind of won William's confidence to go further. And then right after that was Chimera, and that's like my first full-on there from the beginning, because Metron was actually given to me, and like the hardware was done before I even arrived at WMD.
Oh, that's interesting. So how did that work? They just like choose a processor and then they just kind of hand it to you and you figure it out? Or
they had built something, they had someone working on it, they had an idea of how they wanted it to work, but I don't think that things were progressing very quickly. And he literally, like William literally just was like, here's the thing and here's the programmer, see if you can figure it out. And I had to figure a lot of stuff out, including what the buttons should even do. But I don't know, maybe it was like a zeitgeist of that time. I don't know what's going on, but like I had already wanted to build a sequencer just like that. So when they presented me the hardware, I felt like I knew what to do with it. And when I showed them my ideas, they were already like, yeah, this is good, you know. WMD definitely has a lot of like good serendipity of people just kind of thinking along the same lines, and like our inspirations coming from the same or similar areas, you know.
That's kind of I feel like that's a huge project to undertake as like your first main project with a company.
What it did was it taught me that, you know, like when you have a dream, like of something you care about, like what it means to like want to do it, and then what it means to actually step up and like go through the process of start to finish doing something professional, you know. It was serious, but it was like formative, extremely formative, because I was disciplining myself to come home after work and work on it. And that helped a lot once I was given the time to actually just be allowed to do this stuff all day, you know, full time, to where like originally I was doing assembly at WMD. And once William told me, he's like, no, I'd be much more valuable for you to be working on this stuff. Even when I had free time, I was given the leeway to keep it creative, keep it focused on WMD, and not just go back and do some assembly unless unless like I felt burnt out that day, because it's always open to someone, you know. Some days you can't just engineer, and having some manual labor to do is kind of nice. But
so when you say assembly, you're talking about like not programming, is that what we're talking about? Like
yeah, I'm not talking about assembly language. I'm talking about assembling modules, like our what we call through-hole assembly at the shop.
okay, cool. Interesting. And so your background is it primarily software development? I mean, did you like go to school and all that, or?
No, I was like a hobbyist in software development, really like that video game Second Life. I used to put a lot of hours into that game, and it has 3D modeling and it has a programming language. And that was like the first, you know, besides just like silly school stuff, the first real creative programming I ever did. And I I think I was like maybe 15 at the time. You actually weren't even allowed to play the game. Like I had to get my parents to sign with their ID and stuff. But I would like 3D model guns and then script them to have particles and sounds and functionality and everything. But when I actually decided, when I went to school, when I went to college, I thought I thought that I needed to do every piece of making stuff on your own. And I knew I wanted to make like electronics. I like designing user interfaces and working on that kind of stuff. So I went to school for electrical engineering, and about 3 years into the degree, I didn't feel like I was putting any puzzle pieces together. Like I was just doing a lot of math and a lot of science, which I like, and actually it still helps me more now, but I couldn't see the vision. So I had already had a ton of math and science credits, or I mean, and engineering credits, and I was able to find this degree that essentially is like make your own degree. So what I had done with that already fulfilled like most of the requirements. So then at that point, all I had to do is choose a minor, and that would allow me to finish with a bachelor's of science. And I did the minor in entrepreneurship, because again, I just had this goal of making electronics, of working on them, designing them, coming up with cool interfaces that people like using. And yeah, so I did the entrepreneurship. It totally like refreshed my outlook on school. I was able to finish and get it all done. But during school is when I found out about, like when I narrowed in to synthesizers, and then even on into Eurorack. Because synthesizers for me, like early on, like again, I was an electronics nerd, and that's one of the biggest things you could find on the internet in like 2008, 2006, and 7, like for DIY projects, was music related stuff. And then you see a synthesizer for the first time with its control panel and all the knobs and buttons and lights. And when you see a really like great looking one, you know, like a mini Moog, or you see a Buchla for the first time, and that's just super inspiring. I knew like at all costs I was going to figure out a reason to play with those things, you know.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's really interesting. So I guess I'm kind of like in that same thing, whereas like now I'm kind of getting into electronics, and you know, at one time I wanted to be a software developer, and I don't know, like for electronics it's really tough. There's like, I think this bridge, or you know, you have to connect some dots, and like it's just not happening yet.
No,
So,
I still like have like, I didn't even like come to terms with the fact that I should be programming until I worked at WMD. Until I like was doing that Metron project. Because even still, when I started there, I thought like, oh, I want to learn electronics and layout and schematic design and stuff like that. And now that I like know my personality so much more, like that would have never worked. Like I have to mess things up 100 times to even get an idea of where I'm going. Like I rely on that. I'm definitely a hacker and not like a scientist.
cool. So what is Metron programmed in?
In C.
Okay.
Yep, that's like the main thing I use. I like it because at the end of the day, like I still am more of like a hardware person than like someone who writes applications for the PC, because like it's, for me, the way I look at it is reading applications, programming interfaces, APIs, like documentation on software libraries versus reading a data sheet. At the end of the day, a microcontroller is still a machine. Like it works one for one. Like you turn a switch, it does something. And the and like software libraries, they have all kinds of hidden functionality. I can never really trust what's going on. So I still like, when I write my code, I look at it as a machine. And I want it, you know, to like have very known ways of working. I don't like having anything hidden from my mind or whatever, my perspective.
Yeah, that's super interesting, man. So what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and music? And well, really more like machine learning and music.
I can tell you my favorite application I've seen so far. This thing called Factor Synth. It's a Max for Live plugin. So I haven't been able to try it. I can't wait for the guy to actually take it out. But this guy, I think it's AJ Buret or JJ Buret. He wrote like an awesome paper on it and everything. But what Factor Synth does is you give it a loop, and it analyzes the loop and creates like 8 fixed spectrum like additive oscillators from it, and then a bunch of amplitude envelopes that go to each of those oscillators. And by just mixing those 8 oscillators, it can recreate the loop like pretty damn good. I'd say like about 80% of the way there every time. So then once you have that, it's like part of the spectrum might be the attack of the sound, and part of the spectrum might be the sustain of the sound. And now you can like redraw like the envelope, but like it's really crazy. And you can even do like you can analyze 2 loops and swap, like, you know, part the oscillator. So like you could put in 2 drum loops and swap the attack. It's really hard to explain. It's also kind of heady. Like even watching the videos takes a second for it to go through your mind. I've tried to read his paper on how it works. Eventually I'll get there, but that's been by far the coolest thing I've seen. So like essentially analysis of sounds, but then applying like the analysis data to synthesis parameters. That's what I think is cool about the AI stuff so far. But
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I've heard some compositions, and like I think there's like an infinite stream of techno that's just on YouTube. It just keeps going, and I don't know. I still feel like there needs to be a human element just to do like the editing, you know, just to kind of decide what's good, what's not.
Yeah, and that's like this tool is very much you feed it to the AI, and then the AI gives you stuff to play with. You know, it still comes down to you at the end of the day. I don't. I think there was a time maybe when I was first getting into Eurorack, and I think it is still a popular thing to like. I don't know. I guess we both kind of do this, where the machine is still our companion. You know, like it feeds us inspiration as much as we feed it ideas, but I still want to say whether it's good or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's like the randomization stuff. And so you do a lot of like improvised stuff. I mean, like how much do you rely on randomization?
So like before Volterra came out, I was all architect, like mainly sequencing, and that's not exactly random, excuse me, but it's very on the fly. It's choose a few notes and it's ripping through them and send resets. And then Voltaire came out, and I just basically needed to spend a lot of time testing. So at that point, like that's where probably half of my streams are like I call them bailouts, like ideas that I can bring up when improvising goes south, or when I'm just getting nervous or whatever. But really, honestly, inspired. I knew that I wanted to get back to the architect feeling. I felt like I had a lot more fun doing that. And then inspired by seeing your stuff, I was like, oh, just pure random actually can get some stuff done. Maybe I'm overthinking a little bit of this, and I still haven't like I'm not just doing pure random. I'm like generating random and then quantizing it and adding a few logical rules and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to head back to that more like free in the moment. Like there isn't anything written.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know that you watch my stream. That's super cool. It's funny because you just never know, like who's watching, despite the numbers. Like I have pretty low numbers, but it's
I
like
try
it's
to
really
pride
cool.
myself on like knowing everyone out there doing what we're doing. Like I try to follow everyone who's like doing something that seems live, but also like put together, like still has that sound. I spend a lot of time searching for inspiration on YouTube, especially since pandemic times. Like everyone that was getting burned out, I feel like at first I just noticed, just not being around your friends, especially when you work at WMD, like the ideas are coming in all the time. Everyone there is 10 times more musical than I am. That helped a lot. And once that kind of went away, finding people on YouTube to watch was like my makeup for it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Hang on, my daughter's like just getting into everything. All right, you want to come watch? All right. Say hi.
Hi.
This is super fun. What's funny, man, is like the whole random thing is like partially like I don't want to think, and the other thing is like I did so much homework on like putting together Octatrack sets, like getting samples and I mean I would spend. Okay, here, go watch cartoons. I would spend like 4 to 6 hours prepping a 2-hour set, and I can only do that so many times.
Oh yeah. Or go back and like tweak it. Like, oh man, I'm not great about that. I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned Octatrack. Octatrack is actually the piece of gear that really pushed me over the edge to get into Eurorack. Because when I had an Octatrack, it's very modular. You can set it up 1,000 different ways to do 1,000 different things. And every time I played it, I set it up different. And with that, like the one weird limitation of what's it called, where it only has 4 setups per bank or whatever, I could never get around that. So I just always set it up different every time. And I realized, wow, if I'm having so much fun just setting the machine up differently and seeing what happens, like I'm pretty sure there's a synth format that's literally made to do that. And that's what kind of what pushed me over the edge to get into Eurorack. my first modules were, what was it? It was a Time Safari, thinking that that could somehow compare to Octatrack. The Delptronics Trigger Man, which was a cool, just small trigger sequencer, and then Dopefer A143 Complex AD Envelope. A very weird set of modules, maybe like the most ill-fitted setup I've ever had to actually making music, but one of the ones that I like probably was the most creative, just like just doing things that I didn't know you could do and just having fun, you know.
Yeah, Octatrack. Like the thing with Electron for me was I actually got like the first Mark IIs of the Analog 4 and the Analog Rhythm, like when they first came out. And I had the sticky button issue, and then like I had pad issues on the Rhythm. And the thing is like I love the Rhythm. I thought it sounded amazing. It was like super flexible. But I just got tired of that. And then with Octatrack, that was the only one that stuck around with the analog heat, by the way, which is also super sick. But yeah, the whole modular thing with the LFOs and just being able to map those everywhere. And dude, I did a couple sets with just like an 808 kick sample, just one, and just turned it into like an entire set, which was, that's when it got really fun. I was like, okay, Octatrack is really cool. But one of my friends, we had a shared studio space for a bit, and he was super into modular. And he's like, when are you going to get into modular, man? When are you going to get in, you know? And then eventually just got in from there. But yeah.
One of my OG YouTube inspiration guys, this guy, Daniel Kerr, Sauce. Like back in the day, there used to be this forum called Live PA. So I like knew a bunch of people from there, and he's an old guy from there, and he plays Electric ESX, and like he's the best at it. Like he did things that Korg didn't know you could do on it, but he had a cool trick where he would sample movie trailers and chop them up, and that's what I did a lot of that with the Octatrack. The Battleship movie trailer was the last one I think I did before I sold it, and I was like, okay, I got my use out of this machine.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I remember Live PA because it was like the Data Line was the main guy I would watch, and then like Tearketh was active in like all the forums.
Yeah, Tearketh. Tearketh showed up at NAMM a couple years ago with this crazy software modular hardware thing. And I haven't seen anything more of that, but yeah, there was like, that was a good community back in the day. And obviously some of the people are still out there doing stuff. One of the guys, Brown Boy and later Tan Man, he got me to this. I mean, it ended up not working out, but he tried to get me to help him work on a project where he designed this thing where you could sync MIDI or URAC or whatever without a cable by GPS. Because I guess GPS puts out like an extremely precise clock. So two people can connect to it and they'll be in sync. And you know, what he was trying to do was lead to playing on the internet, like with a delay and stuff. Unfortunately, like someone broke in my house, stole like my Novation circuit, and that little Raspberry Pi board that was connected to it, they didn't even touch my Eurorack that was sitting right next to this stuff. And I felt like telling the guy the story, like I felt like it sounded like I was lying, you know, like, oh, they came in and I can't help you test this because someone came in and they stole that. They left my really expensive gear, but they stole what I needed to help you out. Like it was kind of crazy.
That's crazy, man. That sucks too. And like, so you lost all your code and stuff? Is that?
No, it was his project. But he had sent me a Raspberry Pi pre-programmed. He sent me a setup because he basically needed people to help him test it so he could finish writing his paper on it, like what the problems are, improvements for later. I think it was some kind of master's or maybe even PhD thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up not being able to give him any of the data he needed.
Oh no.
So I basically just got him to send me some stuff, and then I pieced out.
Yeah. So like an idea we had, I'm sure, I mean, ideas are a dime a dozen, but like you guys are executing it, which is really awesome. But we had talked about like a world clock that just generates, BPM, but like
That's
everybody can
it.
just
It
pop in.
exists.
Yeah.
It exists. It's like you have to license it from one of these colleges, but it exists.
Oh man, that's sick. That's
Like
so
Princeton,
cool.
I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting with like all the latency calculating for all that and stuff.
Yep. I mean, I had just got it set up. Like the last thing we needed to do is get the DAW with like to get the delay set up, and like in between the times where we were supposed to have a meeting, everything went down.
That's crazy, man. Alex said somebody broke in his convertible too. Is this in Denver?
Yes. Yes. Alex and I both don't live in the greatest neighborhoods.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like it's like kind of, I mean, we left a window open, but it was like over our kitchen sink, and it's about like 10 feet off the ground. But somehow someone managed to climb up there into our kitchen and clear a few things out.
There's a synth burglar just running rampant in Denver.
Obviously not very heady synth burglar though. They left the Euro rack, thankfully.
True. Oh man, that's rough.
Another piece of gear from that Octatrack time that like taught me, one of those some of those modular lessons, that you don't get from using like really linear sequencers is the Dave Smith Evolver desktop. Like learning that I could after I'd used all four of the sequencers, I could like use the LFO to like go from the root to the fifth, things like that. Like really nonlinear sequencing things that you don't really see on many pieces of gear, or at least you don't really get to that point unless you kind of really know what you're doing.
So let's talk a little bit about your musical beginnings and just kind of like where just kind of what you're doing with music. Because you are doing, or you were doing, this thing called Friday Night Living Room Party, which I've peeped a couple of those sets, and it's like super fun. So yeah, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, starting off music was like just straight up being inspired by really cool artistic people who are my friends, and just trying to like grab a little piece of what they're capable of. So I started playing guitar back in the day, but I never really got anywhere with that. And I eventually, like, I think maybe through Daft Punk, I learned about Ableton, like 2008, 2007, a live from their live set. I learned about Ableton. And I was like, this is cool. This is something I can get my mind around. Because previously, like, I had just one time fucked with, with Sony Acid, like from what's it called? Nine Inch Nails was having like a remix contest. So I got the demo and I put it together and I put these loops together and I was like, this is fun, but kind of silly, like not super inspiring. But then eventually when I learned about Ableton, I was like, this is really cool. And somewhere in there is where I was starting to see the hardware synths too. And I never got Ableton. I think I messed with the demo. I showed it to a few other people. I may have got more other people into it more than I ever even got into it. But then I went to college and someone in my apartment complex had a microKORG. And I was like, damn, this is a real synthesizer. Like, not easy to use. I ended up learning how to use it better than she could. But it was this girl, and then she had another friend who had a different synthesizer, like a Novation Ion or something, I don't remember Zio, something like that. I don't know. And I was like, well, they both have synthesizers and they're not that great at music. So I think I could justify buying a synthesizer. And I bought a Alesis Micron. which was heady. It had like way more features and way less interface than their stuff, but it was right for me. I got a lot done on that thing because you could do like multi-timbral, so I would make drum patterns with the synth patterns and stuff. And then eventually I got Electribe ES1 and just played that set for the longest time. That was really fun, just jamming, not getting anywhere with music, but just having fun jamming. And then I realized that there was a lot of gear on Craigslist. And I started using my student loans to flip Craigslist gear and fix Craigslist gear and move it from Craigslist to eBay for like double the price. Definitely like, you know, stuff you could do in 2010 that you definitely can't do anymore. Like I fixed so many command stations. I bought so many EMU command stations and fixed them. There's EPR Electronics in Tampa. I think they still exist, but they had the parts, and I would buy the parts and fix them and sell them on. Like that was probably my number one thing I did was fix command stations. And I never made any music with that gear. That piece of gear is so hard to use. It's like you got to know what you're doing for sure.
Dude, like you're like my brother from another mother, man. Like talking about.
I think a lot of
us
have this story.
Talking about Sony Acid. I didn't even. So I started on Fruity Loops, and then in college, really, or like first year, I got Acid, and I was like, where are all the sounds? Like I didn't have. I was like, what does this even do? And I think eventually I figured it out. But yeah, and then talking about Craigslist and synths and just getting into it and repairing stuff. That's how I got into gear hardware was actually just cleaning stuff and then flipping it. Because like what was my first? It was the MC. It's the little Roland Groove Box, but it just
the
had
202 or.
It's the silver one.
Oh, you're talking about like the digital groove boxes, like
yeah,
that era, or the ones that are literally called groove box.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's written on the panel, groove box.
Yeah.
Yeah, like MC 505 and stuff, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just some of the buttons didn't work, so it's like, well, how do I fix this? And you know, it was owned by a smoker, so I had to like Q-tip it and take it apart and clean it, and then ended up selling it, and then yeah, I just went from there. So like, I totally relate to all of that. So
yeah, after you know like all that's, I mean, college, that's where it just shoots up. I start trying everything, and eventually I bought a person's studio because they were about to have a kid and they wanted to sell it all. And this was my chance to get a virus. There was a Triton in there. There was all kinds of crazy shit, like stuff that I never even would have bought. But it was a great deal. And also I was getting my first pair of like legit studio monitors. That was cool. Big change from using like
what were the monitors?
Speaker. Some kind of Roland D something. I have no clue. They just worked, you know. But when I bought that studio, I had this roommate who was an amazing musician. And he busted out he's like, can I play the Triton? He's like, one of the bands I was in, we used to have this and I loved playing it. I'm like, yeah, take it in your room, man. Like, I'm just gonna sell it. Like, I don't know how to use this thing at all. We called it the Tri-Ton because it weighed so much. And the first time he plugs it in, he's just flipping through the instruments. And this is where I realized that like, you don't just play a sound, like every sound has to be played right. So like, he could flip to a guitar and play the keyboard so it sounded like a guitar. Like when he went to he played the right, you know, arrangement for each instrument, like the right type of line. And that was just an eye-opening thing. Like from me, just literally just making sounds and like putting some drum rhythms that I looked up on the internet to it, like to actually being like, wow, this goes so much further. Like really, it was basically where I felt for the first time I was not doing the gear, like even coming close to scratching what the gear was capable of, you know? And that's where I started really learning about synthesis deeper and mixing and audio really.
So where does minimal techno come into that? Like, how did you get into minimal?
I don't even like know really like what the sound I like to hear is called truly, but I know that I like that like super subby roll, woo, 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 that kind of sound. So I like it in house. I like it in techno. Like, um, I focus on just like that very basic thing a lot. So that's just what I was kind of referring to on that. I feel like a lot of tech house has that, um, and then like the modern techno has that cool low end that I really like. I've never been like dubstep was something I've always been into, but when dubstep started hitting that like where the mids were louder than the lows and stuff, that's where I kind of checked out and I started realizing that like, oh, I actually like music that favors the low end, and that actually makes the top end usually very quiet by comparison. I can only listen to music that's like mid and top heavy for like an hour or so, where I can just groove on the really low stuff all night, pretty much.
So, dubstep wise, like, what are some of the who are some artists that you're into?
These days I don't like these days I'm more like just listening to it's not even dubstep anymore. Like I don't even know what they call it, like stuff like rhythm and beats and stuff. So like Vision, the Noisias label, that's like I can just go there and check out stuff that's on Ninja Tune. I usually dig. And then anything that's more like more dubby than like garagey, like Dubchasm. They're one of my favorites. And then like all the old school stuff like Scream and the Bug and stuff like that's super fun. That's like a whole genre that is just not popular anymore. But that was a cool ass sound. And now when you hear it like come on big speakers again, you're like, oh yeah, this is sick.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. That's like Rusko was kind of my intro to dubstep, and then
Yep.
of course watching his future music feature is like trying to figure out how to make that kind of music. So
Right now, Kaiju Justice, a track that Alex Nasty Nacho showed me, that's one of my testing songs, like for setting up system or whatever, like for being like, do things sound right to me? Like that's one of my reference songs, I guess.
Mm, mm.
During pandemic, well, not maybe a little bit before during pandemic, but definitely during pandemic, I've gotten into building out our living room PA, and it's pretty crazy right now. It's two QSC HPR 153s, so it's a 15-inch sub, 7-inch mid, and then tweeters, and we've got two of those in the living room, and it's the shit.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the HPRs. I got the 12s and the 18 sub
Yep.
for gigs and stuff, weddings and all that. But so you like watching movies on that?
It's actually like with the way our living room's set up, if it favored the TV, then jamming would be different for where you're standing. So it's on like the other wall so that we all hear the same thing. Because that was like an early PA issue we were having. It was like where you were standing in the jam circle, like you got a different sound, and we've kind of like, that's kind of actually probably was one of our major focuses, like to get fixed originally.
So speaking of jamming in the living room, Friday night living room party, like how did that come about?
Yeah, so Friday night living room party is COVID. Again, like talking about gaining inspiration from YouTube. Before COVID, I was doing Freak Boutique, and then we also had Patched Out. Patched Out was the Freak Boutique is an open mic, modular open mic. Patched Out was the curated dance party that Alex and I were putting together, like from Freak Boutique people and then from other homies, Hardware Dance Party. And I had that gig every month, so plenty of motivation to practice. deadlines and stuff. And when that went away, I could see like how much of a motivation that was actually playing, like where you think things are intrinsic. For me, like very little is intrinsic. Like people around me are definitely motivating what I do, like cues and stuff. So I knew that I had to set this thing up to force myself to stay hot, to keep practicing and keep getting better. Because also music is maybe like one of the first things that I've ever like practiced, like been really shitty at, really bad at, very discouraged by, and practiced and actually felt like I was getting better. Like a lot of things, like are natural, so you have fun doing them. Or like for me, skateboarding, like I never stopped skateboarding and I never got better. I never got any better. But music was the one thing where I could see the practice paying off. So I definitely felt like I lost something when I wasn't motivated to practice anymore.
So is this kind of like you guys just get together and just throw down? Is that?
Paul City is my roommate. So it's we're already like, we have that lucky aspect of, when one person's practicing, that you hear them, you're like, oh, I should go do something. And then also, like he's just started making music in the last couple of years, so he's stoked to get anything he can, which just helped me keep going. So that's why it was mainly Paul City and I every week, and then Nasty Nachos a couple times, our other friend from WMD, Love Cosmic Love, and then a close homie of one of our old, or close homie, the brother of one of our old roommates. He's Funk Hunk, and he's come out and played for us a couple times. He's actually like has a good following. Like his videos have 10 times, the ones on our stream have 10 times more views than any of the other ones. Like he's a really great musician. So one of those people that, we're always happy to get in there anytime. And actually I say that Paul and I are noobs. Matt, Alex, and Funk Hunk they're pros. They've been doing this stuff for a long time.
So, who are some of the artists that you're listening to, drawing inspiration for? Minimal or techno?
That like what I was saying on the Discord is, when it comes to like listening to recorded music, I don't do a lot of it. I actually listen to more like live sets on YouTube of people like us than I do of like recorded music. So when it comes to recorded music, I kind of just stick to like my favorite labels, which I already said, Vision, Dirty Bird. Like they've got plenty of that tech house vibe that I really like. And then there's one called Deep Perfect Records. And the funny thing is, you got to spell, it's Deep Perfect with one P. If you type in two P's, all you get is Dude Perfect videos, which I'm pretty sure are like Frisbee trick shots. So Deep Perfect, and they're like that deep house. But I just feel like it's not a genre that I like, it's an EQ curve.
That's an interesting way to think about it. I've never heard that, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Like, I love to reference on Span all the time. And, like there's like some general rules that people will tell you, but then when you go to listen to music that are in a specific genre, you start to realize that genres have their own like balance too,
So Deep Perfect is Stefano Noferini's label, and
oh, that's his label.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So out of the people that you sent me the other day, that was my favorite guy. I listened to like everything on his SoundCloud, and I saw that he had Deep Perfect releases, and I was like, oh, of course, that's so cool. And now you're like, no, that's his label.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of the few labels I even know anything about, because I kind of did the same thing. Like I just listened to everything that he put out. But he's over in Italy, and I got lucky and I got to see him in Atlanta at a tiny club, a totally undersold show. It was one of those situations where the club was upstairs and it was just like, open format. And then we had the basement. And dude, I had so much fun. And that's where I discovered he played this one track and it just stuck in my head. And I was like, where is this track? And so I started listening to all his shows. Like he does like a weekly podcast show where he just does a mix or whatever. And
yeah, I listened to a few of those.
Yeah. And I found the track and I searched it down and it was Matt Sassari. And so then I started listening to his stuff and that became my favorite. He's my favorite.
Maybe one of the reasons why I stick to labels is because I don't feel like I've had much luck doing that. Like usually I feel like I get caught up on one specific song that this person did, and then their body is kind of different,
Yeah, for sure.
I also will get in my head, like when I'm searching for music, like I get too focused on this specific thing and I kind of like stop listening to. Like I don't know what that is, but I've noticed it a few times now. So I keep it lighter and I try to like notice patterns more than searching. It just doesn't, I don't have good luck with it.
Do you DJ?
No, and I was gonna say like that's probably that like is very logical that I don't DJ because I don't have fun collecting music. And then even more than that, I don't think I'm like great at reading the vibe, because almost every time I'm like, this would be a great song to put on, I regret it. So I don't consider myself to be a DJ. I like to listen to what other people are playing a lot more than I like to put it on. Yeah. But when it comes to jamming, that's different. Like I can follow my ear way easier with jamming.
Yeah. No, man, you'd be a great DJ. You just play whatever you want to play.
I think I could practice with a crate, like with a handful of songs, but it would essentially just be doing what I do on Modular.
Yeah. So when I was talking to Honey Smack, I was telling him like the random generated stuff is fun because it's kind of like digging for samples. And it's just like, and as quick as that can be, the better, because it's like you can listen to it for one bar and like within that one bar if it's worth keeping or not. And then
that's what I learned from having that Architect. But on my Teletype patch, I've even like taken that a step further. So the random sequences are pseudo-random, seeded by a number. So I can just save the number to get back to it. I haven't used that at all yet, but I do have like a list of numbers that I think are cool.
Yeah, one of the homies is using Ornament and Crime. I think there's a 303 pattern thing that's just like that, where it has a number and it's the seed, but it specifically generates a pattern off of that. And then he said it's exactly like what you said. You saved the number. So Teletype does that too. Interesting.
I wrote it. Teletype doesn't do anything.
Oh!
The hardest part of Teletype is figuring out what you're going to do with it. It's like a code. It's basically a code sequencing module. It's like 8 trigger inputs and 8 scripts. And the trigger input runs a script. But mine all revolve around like basically making like a fancy architect. Like the fanciest thing is that when the bass note plays its highest note, the other sequence plays a different one. Like that's like the fanciest rule that I have in there, but that's like kind of the ideas. And that's that's just something I like heard I think it was Justin J say. He was like, oh, when your bass note plays its highest note, don't let the lead play the highest note. I'm like, okay. Just a fun rule I can play around with. Like, it doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Oh, man. So Teletype was like made for you then. I didn't know that it was like a custom program thing. I don't know much about it, honestly.
Yeah, I use it as basically like a Metron expander, like custom expander,
Okay.
Because with its main inputs being 8 triggers, it's also perfect to plug Metron into it.
So what do you think is missing from Modular right now?
Well, every sample, I get pissed off with every sampler. I definitely want to make a sampler, but it's not that anything of them are missing. It's just the interfaces. Or if it has an interface I like, then it has things that I think are missing. Um, but as I say that, I'm like, I would have more fun making a sampler than I'll ever have using a sampler. Like now that I'm like significantly more versed in synthesis, like I enjoy synthesizing sounds way more. Like that's why, uh, you know, well, actually, all of our drum modules are synthesizers at their core. You know, like it comes from the idea of basically like a synthesis algorithm. You know, with Chimera being like granular looping. I don't even know how to describe it. It's called overlap loop. That's what the algorithm's called. And then what fracture being based on the synth of the way the clap envelope of the 808 and the 909 clap, like it being that multi-peaked envelope, just applying samples to that concept and like making something that can do that burst thing, you know. And then Crucible was the waveguide, 2D waveguide mesh, so like a delay network, like acoustic modeling delay network. And then people are going to be surprised to hear this, but the Kraken is extended Car Plus Strong.
I have no idea.
You never heard Car Plus Strong? Car Plus Strong is like that when you run a really short delay line and you get that kind of like pluck with a low pass filter in the feedback path, and you get that kind of like guitar string pluck.
Okay, yeah.
So like that's the core algorithm or synthesizer, and then like tons of stuff applied, you know, to boost it from there. But that is where it started from. So basically, what I'm just saying is like in my mind, all of the drum modules, like I could make them into a keyboard looking synth, you know, like if we had all the knobs to expose, like because they're all macroed out to be a drum, you know, where a synth can make a drum, it can make a bass, it can make anything, you know.
Wow, dude, that's like really interesting. Alex had mentioned the 2D mesh thing. So I'm just kind of curious is how do you stumble across this or think this up and then think to apply it to sound like that?
I don't think it up. There's people out there getting PhD degrees inventing new synthesis types, and I have to read their paper, which is mainly math, and somehow get it into code. And yeah, I mean, some of these things are even like licensed and stuff. Like the waveguide mesh thing, that like was patented until like 2008 or something. So there's probably already modern synthesis techniques that just haven't been applied because of licensing and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's so cool to know that like that's out there.
Yeah, there's like Kerma. I can't remember what that stands for. CCRMA. That's one of these colleges, like their music technology department. I know Princeton has it. And it's cool. Like there's tons of technical information you can go and find out there. DAFX, Digital Audio Effects, is like a conference and probably like a body of people. And you can find papers that people submit every year to that. The Cymatics website, I think that's the guy. He has his own plugins, but I think he did all the filters in Ableton. He has stuff like for the music DSP guys. What I'm saying is like these people all know what I'm talking about. Like the Vadim paper. Like there are these super hyper modern DSP papers, and once you get in with that crowd or you know where to look, KVR forums, it's an endless supply of new ideas or you know, how to apply these ideas in code and stuff.
That's incredible.
So but we do start real quick. We do start with like what we want to do before we ever search for an algorithm. I don't think that any of the things have been algorithm first. Like with, I mean, maybe Crucible kind of, because I I got interested in the mesh and I tried it out, and then I showed it to them and was like, look, we could probably make a symbol with this. But usually we have an idea of what we want to do first, and then we try to come up with some fresh way of synthesizing it.
So do you have time? Do you have time to work on your own projects outside of WMD?
Yeah. I mean, sure. I just don't have that much motivation. I mean, WMD is my main thing. I have like a project I'm working on with a friend. We meet once a week, but it's really heady. We're both like heady. Like it's going to be in design for way longer than it's going to be like actually making it. And it's essentially like a programming language and prototyping tools that are supposed to be very accessible to people. So yeah, that's my only one, but I don't feel like that project's not suffering because of the amount of time I have. It's suffering because it's really hard. And maybe because like some projects, like it's not just time in general, but actual like time alone. You know, where like you're just deep in your head and you don't hear any noises. Like I rely on a lot of that. Like my productivity, not my creativity, but my productivity as far as coding goes has gone up significantly since I started working at home. Like I can knock out projects way faster and with less frustration than I used to be able to at the shop.
Yeah. Wow.
So basically what I'm saying is, you know, when you get really deep in something, like sometimes you need your life to be completely distraction free. So I feel like that's my limiting factor more than like work or something on personal projects.
Have you seen the Electrosmith Daisy stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just peeked it, but I haven't gotten into it. I mean, for me, like I don't really want to use like the system that someone else has built. So like I either want to like just write C code for a processor or something like that. So I actually am more comfortable like modifying a mutable module than I am buying like an actual open-ended module like that. Because the mutable stuff is like dead close from the tool chain to how our stuff is. So like I wrote my own stages firmware that I was using for a while that just threw out the whole thing. Like just basically turned it into 6 things instead of, you know, one fancy thing. But yeah, when it comes to like open-ended and trying ideas out, I'm also like coding is the last place where I want to try an idea out. I'm much more likely to pull up like Bitwig Grid or like I had an Axolotl, like using. So I guess I don't know. I guess I'm running in circles here. I could probably try out the Electrosmith Daisy. I just didn't get into it enough. It's, you know.
And so, were you like a math whiz in school? Are you a math person? I mean, you're talking about reading PhD papers. I mean,
yeah, but that's the hardest thing. Like, is the math. That's why like I have to hit these forums and stuff. I can do math. I can use math. I can apply math very well. But the type of math that's in these papers are these equations that use like specific symbols that mean like phase and stuff. And if you're not even familiar with these symbols, like you already have work to do to even just be able to read the equation. So that stuff I'm not great at. Like if a paper has a DSP diagram drawn in it, I can get to work way faster than if it just has what they call a system of equations. Like you can draw a diagram for a delay line and all this stuff, and then somehow you can also write an equation that represents the same thing. And that I'm not. I can apply math just fine. Very practical math skills, but not like academic math skills at all.
Uh-oh. Hang on just a second.
Let me take a peek at some questions. Let's see. Oh, no questions. Oh, maybe I got to refresh. Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking at I don't see any questions.
Nothing.
I guess I'm doing a great job at asking all the questions. Wow, that's really interesting, man. So I guess, so I was talking to one of my friends. We were talking about Electrosmith Daisy, and when it comes to developing on a platform like that, I guess is there the possibility that people will eventually start making like the same sounds, like everything will start coming out sounding the same?
Oh, no, I mean, it's a computer. Only like if you think, computers are going to lead you to the same sound or something. But I mean, it's like kind of double-sided. So like Zoya, like open-ended. I know tons of people. There's a guy who has a Patreon for making Zoya patches, and tons of people just use his patches. So like as a developer, the sad thing about open-ended stuff is people don't want to be open-ended. They want to find the best thing on it and use that, So it's a yes and no. If people are writing their own code, I doubt it. But we're all drawing from similar libraries, which is where you'll arrive at that,
Have you messed with the Zoya, by the way?
Yeah, I had a Zoya. I used it a lot. I really liked it. It's actually one of the, like, out of those types of mod or pedal module things, it's like built-in synthesis pieces are the best sounding ones. Like its filters are great. Like all of its virtual analog stuff sounds really, really good. Where a lot of other ones, like they give you the most basic thing and you kind of need to build up from there.
Yeah. I built a Erica Pico Seek clone in the Euroburo, which I feel like is totally underutilizing it.
But, what? Oh, so well, let me tell you what I did with it, because it'll sound like I was underutilizing it too. But it was. I mean, it did everything I needed. I had a Fader Fox controller that was married to it, like, so they were always together, and I was essentially using it how you would use a K-oscillator, like just to do risers and stuff like that. So I would have like buttons where I could hold the button and go woo, and you could have all your effects, and I could have like noise washes. So I was essentially using it as like an effects box, but it was great because its audio effects that were built in were nice. I didn't have to have sends and stuff for something that's essentially like a fancy crash, So I could just get really heady with transition effects, mostly is what I used it for. And to this day, I want a K-oscillator that I can write my own algorithms for.
That's cool, man. It's interesting. So I got a few comments here. I don't know if you can see those. MV Dirty, you guys have been getting to the things I've thought to ask, so it's been great just quietly tuning in.
Hell yeah.
Cute Nicks. I remember playing with Synth Edit back in the 90s. I don't even know what Synth Edit is. Did you?
What I know about Synth Edit is now I think it's in FL Studio. And I'm pretty sure it's like a modular system. Like you build a synth, kind of like Bitwig Grid. Also, shout out for Bitwig and Bitwig Grid. Bitwig Grid is where I did the first prototype for Kraken.
Interesting. So back to the techno front. So what do you think are the anchors to the techno sound, like to the minimal techno sound? Because there's some things that you do that I hear like consistently. I just want to.
Yeah. Well, one thing to know is that I'm terrible at picking out what is actually doing what in music. Like even like my my homie Paul City, like having only been done music, you know, like years less than I have, he can pick this stuff out way better. So I got some kind of ear problem. But for me, techno is like it's the rumble, and then like a kind of like a certain ride pattern. That's what I consider, and that's like really the first time I heard that. This is gonna sound so stupid. The first time I heard that was in Berlin. Like what you would think of as Berlin techno, or at least what I think of as Berlin techno, was I feel like what I'd been hearing previous to that. That's the last super booth I went to. That was where I heard it, and really at the Verbose party. Um, Life changing, like really cool, you know. And that's where I heard like that rumbly techno. And really about that music, what I like about it is listening to it. Like it's not even like inspiring to me, or what's inspiring to me about it is it's very playable. Like it doesn't, nothing about it says to me that you need to like spend all your time making micro tweaks on the DAW. And then also I can just jam to it all night. Like it's not my like fun grooving music. It's just something that I can just get in my head and just dance and just vibe all night and not feel like my ears need a break. It's a very weird genre to me. Like it has like more practical like things as dance music than it is like listening music for me.
So what is what projects are you working on music wise? And yeah, you just touch on that.
So going back to the Friday night living room party, we're like approaching 50 weeks or something, almost a year. And I was like just starting to feel like the pressure and a little bit of burn of like having to whip something up every week. And I said, when we hit 52 or 54 or whatever, I don't remember, we're going to stop. And we hit 50 and my speakers broke, or one of them went down, like the sub channel went out. And it was not even a night like I wasn't even there. Like I came home and found them like that, you know? So like I lost my mind that day for sure. And then I like definitely didn't have any motivation to make music because now I needed to fix my speakers. And also I fix them myself. Like that's not easy. I don't really know what I'm doing. So like it takes me a lot. So one of them, when I got one of them, it didn't work on arrival and I had to repair it. So I've got plenty of experience now, but I knew it was going to be a project. That's really what I'm trying to get at. And I've just burnt out at that point. Like I probably waited like 3 or 4 weeks to even fix the speaker. I didn't make any music. I didn't make any music until like maybe a few weeks ago. So I've definitely been just taking a break. And then also looking for like my next inspiration, because a lot of my inspiration isn't from the sound I'm going for. It's from like the tricks that people use to get a full sound. Like why I was asking you about the SY05 so much, because like I could tell that that had like a lot to do with things, you know. There's a guy called New Sky who does like kind of disco-y like tech house, and he was using an Electri BSX, but his like all of his shakers and highs and off hi-hat and stuff was just one loop, and then all of his like low bass was a loop, and he would play some drums over that and play like a couple live synths, like a Moog, like the Siren or something like that, and his music sounded amazing. And he was, it was like just so little, so few parts. That's what gets me off, is seeing someone do it with so few parts, but not feeling like anything's been left behind. Like, and I'm happy to hear things that are minimal and stripped down, like Mr. Oizo and stuff. I love that, but like seeing someone produce the whole sound with just what's necessary, and then being able to go for an hour like flowing is that's what I love. So I like really seeing people's techniques and stuff is what inspires me the most. Like I have to know how my machine works before I listen to it.
So I mean, so you're doing the living room party thing, you're doing Freak Boutique, and then the other one, what was the other one called?
Patched out's on hiatus at the moment.
Okay. So you're doing all these things. Like, is there a like an end goal? Like, are you looking to I guess put together like an album and release an album, or to like maybe go tour? Like, is there any goals like that?
Connect with people and form a crew. Like that's really what my big goal is to have a crew, but also like we have a good crew here. We have a Denver crew, but it's everyone has such different goals and stuff. And I would be really stoked. Like I guess like Dubstep. Dubstep was formed from a small group of DJs like trying something out, and then them all like kind of pushing that thing forward. And I don't even need to arrive at a sound. Like I'm happy to be in a techno crew, even if it's not like my main thing. Like I just feel like there's something really cool about having a team. It's the same thing as the WMD. Like I team being on a team is like a big part of my quality of life.
Yeah. On a similar note, I was thinking like it'd be really cool to have, I don't know, just enough connections around the nation to just call up me like, yo, so and so and whatever, we're jumping in the van and we're coming here, and then we're playing, and everybody gets to play, and then it's like next stop, and then just jump in, just do like a huge tour.
The little bit of shows I've gotten to do have definitely been why I only play 6U now. I used to do the 12U thing, but the shows that I get to do are with WMD usually, which means that I have to have a demo case and then somehow sneak in my case too, all on the plane. So I'm like married to the 6U idea, and I've definitely like even thrown out like the silly like 6U crew. Like I'd be stoked like to have 5 people and we all just throw down on 6U.
Nice. So speaking of traveling and compact setups, you don't have to answer this, but are you guys ever look into the 1U space?
WMD, we have a I think it's listed. We have that adapter. We have the 3U. You can put a 4 HP. I don't know if it's bigger, but you can put a 4 HP module in the 1U.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see us making 1U. Wait, it would come down to us making the case. We would have to. I think, I can't speak with any definitive anything. I don't make decisions like that, but I have a feeling, like creatively, that we wouldn't. Actually, here's a great thing to know: is that the only things that move forward at WMD are what we have like creative passion for. Like nothing really like we've had so many projects where like this is a great idea, and then it doesn't move forward because no one's inspired, like no one wants it that bad to be in their case, like that's really the only thing that pushes things forward. So what I'm getting at is I think we would have to have our own case before we felt the motivation to fill up this 1U, but who knows? I mean, Alex and Matt both have IntelliGel cases with 1U rows. So if they come up with something, we'll mess with it. But we're very organic on the way that motivation flows.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw out some complaints about the 1U or the 7U case. Is the row being on top, the 1U row being on top? It would be better if it was on bottom or even in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing we've brought up, I don't know if this is secret, it shouldn't be, is that we'd be more inclined to go like make noise style and do a full row instead of modules.
That makes sense. And then another silly idea. I'll have to send you a picture of this, but it was only recently made possible just because Mosaic did the 1U drums. Was I kind of like drew up this like modified palette case, 62 HP, and it was like 5 rows of 1U. It just looks so stupid.
There's guys that do that. Like they're the kind of like it's weird that, you know, even with the internet, there's still so many things you miss. And like when you go to the trade shows, you actually see some stuff that you're like, what the hell? Who is this person? Like, and there was a guy doing like, it was small, it was really small, and it was all 1Us, and he had like a 1U tube in there. And it's stuff that like, I don't know the name of the company. It's only something I've seen at NobCon, and I'm sure the website exists. It's just like the internet, definitely, and actually like even more so now than back in the day, like it doesn't really do you any favors on discovery. It kind of wants to just push you towards the same things, you know. I mean, I used to like Google used to be a page I used a lot because I would have fun just coming up with my idea and typing it to Google and researching what I was thinking about. And now it's almost like pointless. Like you kind of know what's going to come up. Like the first 5 things like are you know, paid for pretty much. Like I feel like the internet, as a kid, I was very much into like searching the deepest parts to find the coolest shit. And I feel like that's really, really hard to do now because of the algorithms, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Cute Nix asked about your 6U. How many HP?
104. If I felt like I could go to 84, I would do it because I think that 84 is like a cleaner size. Like 104 is a little bit big, like in practicality, width, or actually, let's just say in an overhead. Like the submodular, you can actually put it vertical in a lot of airline things, so it'll fit in almost any overhead. But if I could go down to 84, I would, but I definitely don't think I can. Actually, I mean, with the amount of hole space I have in my case right now, I probably could. But one thing about me is, like, when my case is all full, I get a little neurotic. Like I like having like 20 to 24 HP hole. And it's probably because I work at WMD, like trying things out all the time and stuff, but I don't really like my case to be done.
That's interesting because I like my case to be full and just like tight. Everything's like no space or no nothing, like no blanks.
I feel like I don't know. I can't even explain what it is. I don't know.
But I mean, you're moving stuff in and out all the time, I guess, right?
Yeah. But there's like, my bottom row has been fixed for probably a year now. I'm pretty set on it. Like it'd be weird to change. And I have I'm getting more honed in on those modules that there's no way they're coming out, you know, where a lot of them, like some modules I'll play with them for 8 months. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, not in the case anymore.
I feel you on the smaller setup thing. I'm running the 2 7Us, the 104s, and it's almost too much just to keep track of. And
oh, that was an original inspiration. When I had the 12U set up, I wanted to make like really complex voices. And when you have 3 complex voices, you can't remember you can't keep them as complex because you can't remember anymore. So I was like, you know, cut down, make one super complex patch, you know, instead of trying to have all these voices essentially.
And are you running drums in your rack as well?
Yeah, that changes all the time. That's probably my most like frustrating thing. And if there was a drum machine that I liked, I would probably use a drum machine. But I just use Bitbox Micro. And like actually I have a BD808 in there. I swap in WMD modules at various times. I just tried the 2 HP hat. I didn't love it. Well, it just has a bug. And Yeah, drums, I don't know. I like you need them. Like they're like 80% of sound, but it's definitely not my favorite thing to have in the case. I like
Yeah.
making the drums more than I like using them.
I know that's a point of contention amongst people like getting into modular. It's like, do I do drums in the rack? And like a lot of people are just like, oh, just use a Digitact and just call it a day.
I would love
It's,
to use a Digitact, but well, this is something I refer to as like Korg style and Electron style. The fact that Electron, like when you load a pattern, tweak a knob, you just changed your pattern. There's no way of getting back, you know, without like some very like good planning. And basically any piece of gear that's like that, where it basically just auto saves, it's not like save button, I can't do, because so much of the way I work is by reloading things and messing with them and then reloading them and stuff.
and that's in the Metron, right? That's like you can undo or reload.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
Metron's very Korg style.
Okay. Sorry, I'm pretty newbie to the Metron, the whole thing, but I'm getting there. Going through the manual and stuff, and dude, it's like super like live oriented. Like it's really cool. I really like it.
Yeah, I was telling someone at Freak Boutique that like that original version, the very first one I worked on, I don't think it had an SD card. Like we were, especially Alex and I, like William, his music is very like detailed and programmed. But Alex and I were like, no, I just want something I could just turn on and just get to work, you know, and oh well, you leave it behind just like you always do in Eurorack, you know. And obviously that would have never been the way to go, but that's literally how I'm playing it right now. I don't have anything saved.
Yeah, same. Did you get my feature request for group level randomization and mutes?
Maybe. You're talking about oh, the group. No, the group. I heard in Alex's thing. Yeah. I thought about that. You know, my argument has always just been that it's instead of this, it's you just flick your finger to do the group.
True.
No, I mean that was actually there was group stuff in there, and I took it out. I don't remember. Like we just talked about it. We just said like, no, we don't need to overcomplicate this stuff. But I mean, I feel you. It could definitely get back in there one day.
Let me get that old firmware.
You don't want that old firmware. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't be added again. It was very much like I feel like if there's a different gesture that's like damn close, I don't want to add too many layers of stuff, you know.
Yeah, sure. So can you talk about that real quick? Is like so Alex mentioned that you guys kind of just let firmware stuff just kind of stack up and then just like knock it out. Do you guys have some stuff that maybe you can talk about that's in the future, like plans for the Metron specifically?
I can tell you what we want to do. We want to add some type of slewing, and we want to add a random. But what actually causes features to get shelved is coming up with how they work. There's so many like ways that you could go about running that, and so many different types of features you might want. Like so with random, the easiest implementation would be to just set every step to a random voltage on the Volterra, and maybe like obey the scale if you have a scale on that track. But like other things we've talked about are like looking at a gate pattern and only drawing in steps, you know, that are based on that gate pattern. Or if you already have stuff in there, only adding to the ones that you haven't edited. So it's literally like coming up with how the features should work so that they're cool and creative and not just like the most brainless way of doing it. You know, not like just not the most obvious, you know, because sometimes like the way everyone's been doing it isn't the best, you know. And I like to like take the time to think about these things and try them out and like argue about them with each other and work through it. And it's crazy how much energy that takes.
Are there any limitations, like as far as like the processor and everything goes? Like, can you have too many features? Like, have you guys like reached like a max and all that? I mean,
yeah, like we're pretty much like out of RAM. So like some of the features like have to remember things and then go back, like looping and stuff. So features like that will require like significant work to be added. But I don't think there's anything on the roadmap like that. Everything on the roadmap at this point is like bugs, those things that I mentioned to you, and then like creature comfort, like being able to back up all of your Volterra SD cards to the Metron SD card so that you don't have to take your Volterras out. You know, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Now, more features could come with more expanders, but I have no clue when or if, and especially with the parts shortages, it's not even really like on the table right now to work on. Like I have a few really cool concepts. Alex has some cool concepts that we would think would be amazing, but we might not even look at them again for a year or two, you know, just because of the way things are right now. We're really happy with Metron. We feel like it's scoped. We know what it's scoped for. So we're pretty much focused on improving what we have more than adding a ton of really, really new stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. So Dover Beach asked, what's the USB input on the Chimera for future firmware updates, question mark?
No, it's there because it was like the first module I made, and I may have gotten the software wrong, so we didn't know if we were going to need a bailout.
Nice.
And then once it's in the hardware, it's in the hardware. So
okay, cool. Favorite module? I guess we're going to wrap this thing up. If you got a favorite module, and if anybody else has any other questions, please post them. And anything else you want to add as well?
I don't think I have anything to add. As far as favorite modules go, this is like, I don't know. I love every module that's in my case right now, but the two like obvious ones that I would like, I guess why I'm being weird about this is they're not that special to me. I've just realized that, oh, there's no way I'm not going to have these. And it's the MA35, which is Manhattan Analog's MS10 filter, and VCA, and the Warren soundstage. And I'll say in general, Warren is like a huge, huge inspiration to me. That guy is like so clever. Like coming down to like the same idea of like wanting to see people play music, like with the minimal parts, like just in the right way. I feel like he takes like ideas that have existed for plenty of time and actually is putting true fresh ideas to them. Like the parts that he's using aren't special, but the whole is a completely fresh idea. So I mean it plays into this whole thing. Like I obviously like minimalism, or like simplicity and elegance.
Okay. Where can people find you if they want to check out your stuff, your music?
You can find me on my YouTube, Vino Malo on YouTube. I'm going to get back to streaming soon. I'm going to hopefully submit some stuff for your stream, get that group thing going. And yeah, I'm getting back in it, getting fired up again.
Sick, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate everything that all the insights that you offered up, and it was really cool getting to hear about, not only your music, but, development in the real world with WMD. So,
well, I got to thank you too, man. If anyone doesn't know, there's the Into the Obscurum Discord, or Obscure Machines Discord, and it's rocking. It's a really cool small community I like where everyone's head's at. So thanks for putting that together. Thanks for keeping this stuff going.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Cool. See ya.
See you later, everybody.